I understand you hate the president. I understand you love all of these rulings against him. You and I both know that's not a principle. You're a lawyer. What's the principle that divides when issuing a nationwide injunction is okay when it's not? When the Biden administration was subject to nationwide injunctions, you said that they were travesties for the principle of democracy. You didn't say the referral to Judge Kaczmarek was a travesty. You said his injunction was a travesty for principles of democracy. Yeah. So, in other words, the translation is just you didn't like the outcome. Is that right?
No, Senator. Look, we're talking about, I don't think Article 3 precludes this form of relief. So we are talking about prudential consideration.
Prudential meaning political?
No.
Then
no.
give me, so far I have yet to hear it. You've been questioned by multiple senators. I have yet to hear a principle other than the fact when you like the ruling, you think it's great to apply it nationally, including non-parties. When you don't like the ruling, it is a travesty for the principles of democracy, notions of judicial impartiality, and the rule of law.
Senator Josh Hawley systematically dismantles Professor Shaw's testimony on nationwide injunctions, exposing stunning contradictions in her legal positions depending on whether Trump or Biden is president. In this heated Senate hearing exchange, Hawley uses the professor's own words against her, revealing what he characterizes as pure political bias masquerading as legal scholarship. Watch as 6 minutes of relentless questioning leaves the professor unable to articulate a consistent principle, eventually admitting her political preferences color her legal judgments. This clash over judicial remedies, executive power, and the rule of law reveals the deep crisis in American legal culture where principles seem to shift, with partisan wins. The debate centers on whether single-district judges should have the power to issue nationwide injunctions binding parties who never appeared in court, a remedy virtually unknown before the 1960s, but explosively common during the Trump administration. Hawley's prosecutorial questioning style and the professor's defensive responses make this essential viewing for anyone concerned about judicial overreach, political bias in academia, and the future of constitutional governance. Let's dive into the main video.
Gary, thanks for calling it. Thanks to all of our witnesses for being here. Professor Shaw, nice to see you again. Let me just start with you, if I could, Professor Shaw. You talked about the fact that there have been lots of rulings against the Trump administration. That's absolutely statistically true. I disagree with almost all of them. In fact, I think all of them. But the issue of this hearing really isn't the rulings, is it? It's the remedies. Would you agree? And those are distinct things. You may think that the ruling is quite correct, but that's actually not what we're talking about here today. We could have a hearing on that. Maybe we should. But we're talking today about the remedy. And the question is a remedy that binds parties who are not before the court, is that an appropriate thing? I mean, aren't you concerned about judges binding non-parties in their remedies? You may love the ruling, but even if you do, don't you think it's a little bit anomalous for courts to be going out there and binding parties who are not before them? I mean, is that something we want to encourage?
Senator, I think that judges have been issuing rulings that impact non-parties since Marbury versus Madison, right?
So you're not concerned about it?
I'm not. I absolutely think that they can be abused, and they have been abused.
Wait a minute. You were very concerned about it just a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
You said in response to a nationwide injunction on the Biden FDA's mifepristone rules, and I quote, "This injunction's a travesty for principles of democracy, notions of judicial impartiality, and the rule of law."
I think I've been consistent today. That was issued by Judge Kaczmarek in a single judge division. They're a problem. Those are a problem.
With him personally? Wait,
no.
So your testimony is if it's issued by Judge Kaczmarek, it's bad?
No, sir.
It's personal?
That is not my testimony.
Is the problem with the injunction? You were criticizing the universal injunction
issued by a judge in a single judge division. I've been very clear today that those are a problem.
By a Republican judge in a Republican division, then it's bad.
No, Senator.
Otherwise, it's fine.
No, Senator. I think that single judge divisions are a problem.
What is the principal difference? I'm looking for a principle. I understand you hate the president. I understand you love all of these rulings against him. You and I both know that's not a principle. You're a lawyer. What's the principle that divides when issuing a nationwide injunction is okay when it's not? When the Biden administration was subject to nationwide injunctions, you said that they were travesties for the principle of democracy. You didn't say the referral to Judge Kaczmarek was a travesty. You said his injunction was a travesty for principles of democracy. Yeah. So, in other words, the translation is just you didn't like the outcome. Is that right?
No, Senator. Look, we're talking about, I don't think Article 3 precludes this form of relief. So we are talking about prudential consideration.
Prudential meaning political?
No.
Then give me, so far I have yet to hear it. You've been questioned by multiple senators. I have yet to hear a principle other than the fact when you like the ruling, you think it's great to apply it nationally, including non-parties. When you don't like the ruling, it is a travesty for the principles of democracy, notions of judicial impartiality, and the rule of law.
Look, Senator, I'll say I think I am self-aware enough to know that my view of the underlying legal question, I am sure, colors my perception of the remedy. I think that we should all acknowledge that. And yet I do think
and
that
why shouldn't we stop nationwide injunctions for everybody?
I think
That's what we're talking about today.
Because I'm not willing to leave without relief non-parties who are
you're
injured.
not willing to leave without the ability to bind President Trump.
No, I
right?
think that...
I mean, when it's
believe,
Biden, it's okay.
No.
When it's Biden, oh, it's a travesty. When it's Trump in office, it's, oh, no holds barred, whatever it takes, right?
I believe in
like
a powerful...
What was it that President Biden's staff said? We've got to do undemocratic, unconstitutional things to save democracy. Why isn't this the same
I believe
thing?
in a powerful president. I do believe in presidential power, but power and constraint are not at fundamental odds.
What is the principle?
Power.
What is the principle? The legal principle. You've referenced prudence. You've referenced the judges you don't like. What's the principle of when an injunction binding non-parties, which was never done in this country before the 1960s? And let's see the chart, the Trump chart, which was done really only once Trump came into office for the first time. You don't think this is a little bit anomalous? You don't think that's a little bit strange?
A very plausible explanation, Senator, you have to consider is that he is engaged in much more lawless activity than other presidents, right?
You don't think
you must
this
that as a
was never
possibility.
used before the 1960s, and suddenly Democrat judges decide we love the nationwide injunction, and then when Biden comes to office, no, actually.
It's Republican appointees as well, Senator, and the 1960s is where some scholars sort of locate the beginning of this.
Can you identify one before then?
Mila Sahoni, who's another scholar of universal injunction, suggests 1913 is actually the first, and others in the 20s.
The Republic endured for 150 years before there was a nationwide injunction.
Well, the federal government was doing a lot less until 100 years ago. So there's many things that have changed in the last 100 or the last 50 years.
So long as it is a Democrat president in office, then we should have no nationwide injunctions. If it's a Republican president, then this is absolutely fine, warranted, and called for. How can our system of law survive on those principles, Professor?
I think a system in which there are no meaningful constraints on the president is a very dangerous system
That's
of law.
Not what you thought when Joe Biden. That is not what you thought when Joe Biden was
every
president.
You
said that is not what you said.
You
said it was a travesty for the principles of democracy, notions of judicial impartiality, and the rule of law. You also said
the Supreme Court, Senator, agreed 9-0 with me on that
You also
case,
said when Joe Biden was president, you said the idea that anyone would foreign shop to get a judge who would issue a nationwide injunction was just judges looking like politicians in robes. Again, it threatened the underlying legal system. People just trying to get the result they wanted. It was a travesty for the rule of law. But you're fine with all of that if it's getting the result that you want.
Sir, the Supreme Court agreed unanimously with me in that case, right? There was no standing. The case should never have been allowed to proceed. And the combination of parties without standing and the single-judge division.
No. We're talking. No, they did not. They did not issue a ruling on the nationwide injunction. You criticized the injunction nationwide. Listen,
issued in a case where no one had standing.
Here's the thing. We've now gone 6 minutes, and Senator Kennedy had you for 6 or 7. You couldn't identify a single principled basis. We all know the truth here, which is it's not just you. It's most of my colleagues over here on this side of the aisle, who I respect a great deal, and they were raising very principled objections to the nationwide injunction just 6 months ago, maybe 9 now. And you're probably right. My point is that all that's changed in 9 months is the occupant of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And I realize that my colleagues on this side of the aisle very much dislike that individual, and I realize that you think that the rulings that he has lost are fundamentally sound. We might grant all of that. I disagree with all of that, but we can put that to one side. The question we're talking about here is, should judges, single judges, district court judges, be able to bind non-parties who are not in front of them? And you used to say no, now you say yes. Let's be consistent. I would just suggest to you our system of government cannot survive if it's going to be politics all the way down. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The confrontation between Senator Josh Hawley and Professor Shaw wasn't just a political skirmish, it was a masterclass in exposing the intellectual rot that has infected American legal academia. Hawley didn't just win this exchange, he delivered a devastating indictment of the partisan double standards that threatened to destroy public confidence in our entire judicial system. What made Hawley's performance so compelling was its methodical precision. He didn't resort to shouting or grandstanding. Instead, he came armed with receipts, direct quotes from Professor Shaw's own writings that revealed a glaring hypocrisy. When Biden faced nationwide injunctions, Shaw called them travesties for principles of democracy. when Trump faces the same remedy, suddenly Shaw discovers unlimited judicial power dating back to Marbury versus Madison. The senator's surgical questioning exposed something deeply troubling about modern legal scholarship. These aren't neutral arbiters of constitutional principles, they're political operatives with law degrees, willing to bend every doctrine to achieve their preferred outcomes. Shaw's eventual admission that her political views color her legal analysis wasn't a defense, it was a confession. Hawley's historical argument was particularly devastating. For over 150 years, the American Republic functioned without nationwide injunctions binding non-parties. The founders, Madison, Hamilton, Jefferson, Marshall, they built a constitutional system that didn't require single district judges to have the power to halt presidential actions across the entire country. Yet suddenly, when Donald Trump was elected, this previously obscure remedy became the weapon of choice for resistance, deployed with unprecedented frequency by judges in carefully selected friendly districts. This is forum shopping on an industrial scale, and Professor Shaw had the audacity to defend it while having condemned the exact same practice just months earlier. The senator's frustration was justified and righteous. After 12 minutes of questioning from both him and Senator Kennedy, Shaw still couldn't articulate a single consistent principle. Every attempted explanation dissolved into partisan mush. When pressed on why her standards shifted so dramatically, the best Shaw could offer was that Trump was somehow uniquely lawless, an assertion that itself reveals pure political bias rather than legal reasoning. Hawley's warning that our system of government cannot survive if it becomes politics all the way down should resonate with every American regardless of party affiliation.